Hello and welcome back to CS 107. This is week 9. We're about halfway through the course. We'll be finishing the gyro maze this week. Um, for this video, we will cover some semester updates and go over some the key elements for coding the gyro maze part 2. Corny joke of the day this week, or I guess I should say corny joke of the week. What does a house wear? That's right, a dress. Yeah. Alrighty, as always, office hours with Rothman on 5 to 7. We can also make some adjustments. If you can't make those times, please do email me and we can figure something out. Ayla and Natalia have their office hours on Monday, Wednesday, 4 to 5. We made a slight change in the grading last week. Just to remind you, there's not going to be any more quizzes or exams for this class. It just doesn't really work in this format. So whereas it had been 5%, I'm gonna put that the 5% into the class apps, and anything that we had done as a quiz, and they were like between 1 and 5 points, will just be homework points. So don't worry too much about the quizzes or exams. Appreciate the use of Piazza. Acknowledge it is not the ideal user interface, but it does give us this one really important feature, which is you can post anonymously. And as a intro class, you should feel comfortable asking any type of question that makes sense, or rather ask a question about what doesn't make sense. Note on the Thunkable accounts, they are paid for, and you can sign up for your pro account. I put that information up on Piazza. There's a couple steps you got to go through, a couple click-throughs. Want to acknowledge we're halfway through the course. You guys have done a fantastic job, and I just, given all the things that are going on, we have this new format being asynchronous. We're using actually a new platform. We in the past used App Inventor. We've switched over to Thunkable because we think it's better for learning, and that also requires making sure that all the old curriculum, or not the old curriculum, but adapting the old curriculum to this new platform. And just want to acknowledge that this process, not always a smooth ride. So thank you guys for bearing with us as we figure these things out, and we, being USF as a university, and maybe more specifically the CS community, couldn't do this without you. You guys are doing phenomenal in this class overall. There's 60 plus people in the two sections. Almost everyone is really doing a great job, and everyone who's making the effort and showing up and asking questions and emailing, it's just really appreciated. We're kind of in this together to get this course up and running, and a big part of it to you guys. You guys have been phenomenal halfway through the course. So to give you an idea of what's happening coming up this week, we're working on the gyro maze. Next week, we will do another creative game app, or do a creative app. It'll be similar in like sort of your ability to make choices about how you want to approach it, similar to the way we did the creative soundboard. There will also be a tutorial option if you aren't feeling that creative and you just want to do another basic app. I'll have one of those as an option. There's two more big concepts in this class. It's lists and databases. So we'll do a couple apps that focus on the use of this concept known as lists. We'll have a creative quiz app due towards the end of the course. We'll get into the intro to databases. Week 15, I believe, is immediately after Thanksgiving. That will be the last technical week or course meeting. We will not have a final or a final period for this class. There will be a final assignment. Okay, here's some general notes. A week ago or so, I put up the first points for the survey grades. Those surveys are so valuable and so important. So thank you so much for putting the time and effort into them. That's how we improve this course. There's no other way to do it. We haven't really done it this way before. So to get your feedback on what works and what doesn't, and what needs to be changed and where the errors are, it's just invaluable. So I graded, the way I broke it up is to think about it as the first 5 points per survey in the first 5 weeks. And I just actually made that grade 20 points because we had people come in and out the first week, but going forward it'll be 25 points a piece. Also get some feedback that the homework with procedures just can be a little overwhelming for folks. So again, I appreciate that feedback. We're making these adjustments more or less on the fly. So why don't we take 2 weeks for this week's homework? And given the uniqueness of this semester, if there was stuff that you missed that's pulling down your grade or something to that extent, why don't you email or message me and we can connect about past work. Last note is this week in particular, this is probably the most complicated app we'll be working on this semester. So I tried to, given your feedback about what works and what doesn't, I tried to make it pretty straightforward. And so I would just simply say that, like, the errors when people are like, oh, this isn't working, this isn't where someone points out that something's not working, it's often like sort of a procedural thing where it was a small error that you didn't connect to the right component, something like that. It's the wrong variable, and so I would just say go slow on these things. This is meant for you to succeed, and I want you to succeed. And my advice to you is to go slow. So some feedback from the last couple weeks I thought was really useful. Someone noted that sometimes in the challenges or in the notes I'm asking you to change pre-existing code, and so a person pointed out that like make that clear. So I've tried to. I'm keeping that in mind as I go through to make that as clear as possible. Someone mentioned on code.org can be really annoying because what logically would work is not necessarily what the program is looking for. It's looking for like one specific outcome often. And so noted that happens. It's a weakness of the program. And A, I appreciate your patience in working through it. And B, like if you come to a point where it looks like it should work and it's not, the program is not accepting it, just go on to the next one. I'm not concerned about having every puzzle worked out perfectly. I'm mostly concerned about your effort and like understanding of concepts. So if it's not giving you full credit for something, just shoot me a note and I can check it out on my end. But don't bang your head against the wall trying to get it perfectly working. I would say be ready to move on with the code.org stuff. Alrighty. Last week we did a lot of procedures, and in hindsight, I think I would approach this one differently. We would spend more time on thinking about what goes into each procedure rather than just sort of kind of speeding right through it. But I think the main things I just want to point out here are if you look at each of these procedures, each part of it are things that you've done before. So we have changing we have working with the sound output, working with the time, and changing screens. It's all like things that you're used to doing or that you've had some opportunities to try, and we're just kind of collecting them under one procedure. And similar to touching walls, so we're changing a variable, changing a label, moving a sprite, and then using a basic conditional to check for one specific condition if app lives equals 0. So then a note here is that it gives you the option of calling a procedure within a procedure. It's something that's very common in sort of more complex coding. The reset button used the most lines of code, but again, it's things that you've seen. It's moving the ball, changing variable values, changing labels to show the variable value, working with a timer, working with a sound. It's all things that you've done wrapped into one. I wish we had taken a little more time because as much as is going on here, I think it's all stuff that you generally that we've kind of you've had some experience with. So I feel like I would have pushed, in hindsight, I should have pushed a little harder to think about what goes into a procedure rather than just giving it to you. But anyway, we're here. And so there's some main things to keep in mind. The procedures themselves are not that complicated, even if they have a bunch of code. Okay, so week 9 homework, I'm simply going to ask that you finish code.org lesson 18. I actually changed it. It said to go through puzzle 13. You just need to go through puzzle 10. If you're behind on code.org or Lightbot things, for reasonable circumstances, email me. We can probably work something out. Okay, so some elements of game design that you've been playing with, just as a quick review. I am aware that the gyroscope I was so excited about this. I thought it was such a cool game element to integrate into an app, and I understand that the canvas is not working well in the Thunkable Live app. I'm so sorry about that, and sort of referencing what I started with in the beginning, this is not always a smooth ride in trying to figure out how to make the coolest and most engaging lessons, and I'm working to figure out what the problem is with Canvas popping up for this particular app on your Thunkable Live so you can use the gyroscope. So it doesn't look like people are really able to use the gyroscope, so thank goodness we have those the keyboard interaction, and I'm working to figure out the bug. One other thing I wanted to point out, we talked about this I believe last week, but it's there, instead of having multiple sound components for all the different sounds you want to play, it's much more efficient and it's a much better coding practice to simply use a block like this, which just changes the source. And in hindsight, or for the next semester, I'll go back and integrate that into the original I Have a Dream app, because I think that's really important and something I should have emphasized earlier. So talking about part 2, there's not a lot of actual coding here. The purpose of this activity was to show you that if you have a sort of a template, or you build a template, or rather when you're trying to do something more ambitious with coding, it's often like it's a process of building these little pieces and then just repeating them. So in this case, you have already built your main like maze level, And this week is really just about like this process that you would follow to like expand on the one level that works really well. So you've already written the code, and what you're going to be doing is simply just copying the pages over. Now you think that would be really simple. Unfortunately, that's sort of the rub, is that these little sort of bugs that come into coding or programming generally, and you kind of have to, it's often not the big thing, it's so often these little things. So you're going to be able to copy these pages, and you're going to have to debug a couple things. And I think the easiest way to just show you is on the handout. Let's see here. So here's the process, and it's all in the video, is that the first thing you're going to do is you have to take your level 1 screen that you built last week, and you need to make a template of it. So it's similar to what we did in WebViewer. You'll take it, you'll save it to your screen's level template, whatever you want to call it. The second part, and this is really important that you follow these steps, is I need you to rename your components before you add a new screen. And the reason why we want to rename our components is because when you add the new screen, it's also going to it copies over all the code that you've already written, so you don't have to rewrite your code, but it also is going to give you it's going to give you all your it's going to copy all the components again. So you want to rename your components before you add the new page, so that you can figure out which are the new components, and you just want to delete the new components. You only need one set of components: the gyroscope, sound, and timer. So it's these sort of like procedural things which are simple to do once, but to do them in sequence can be tricky. So please do go slow. The next bug you're going to come across is, once you have your level 2, you've made the copy of level 1, you now have level 2, and you click on the stage, which is where you're putting all your sprites, you're going to see a canvas with no sprites. And so what you have to do, again, it's a bug in the program, is you have to go under, so say you're on level 2, under stage 1 for level 2, you have to go to each sprite, and on the right side, on the on the right side screen of the scene, you'll have to set the stage selection to stage 1. So it'll take 30 seconds. It's annoying, but it's the way you fix the screen. So you should do some modifications in your level 2 screen, like change the background, change the maze around. There you'll have to do some basic coding. So you'll have to go back to the level 1 block screen and switch when this specifically is the event, when ball touches target. Instead of switching to the game over screen, you should switch to level 2. And then another bug you're going to see is that on the level 2 block screen, you're going to see a bunch of errors. It'll look sort of like this, and that's because we deleted all of the new components. We only want to use one set of components. What you have to do is just click through it and switch where it's like asking for gyroscope 1 or sound 1, you have to switch it back to the main components anyway, you've already renamed them. So it should be pretty simple, but while this is annoying, it's much easier than having like 3 of the same component that just really clutters up your code. So it's good coding practice. It's a little annoying. It's something you have to debug. You have to add one piece of specifically of new code, which is when the level opens. So you'll be able to do that. Alrighty, so I'm going to spare you this. You choose to use the slides. I broke it down in the slides. I think it's easier to see on the handout. Yeah, the adjustments you'll be making for each new design screen that you add: delete the new components, change the background, maybe change the wall formation. You have to do some basic block coding. If you want to see what it looks like, we can play the game real quick. And okay, so we hit start. Oh, you can see how that music might get annoying here. Welcome to change music. Alright, so basically I've got level 1 here. And am I going to make it through here? I don't know. Alright, so I've got the end of level music. I used a wait block, and I think I need to put more time in that wait block. So this is what my level 2 would look like. I set it up just so it would be easy to see if I'm moving through level 2. And I've only got 2 levels built, but on your challenge, you should add a 3rd level, and it takes me to the end game. Okay, so that's what your app will basically look like. Here are some. Oh, you can change the. Made a note. Of course, you're changing the background of your levels so it looks different in some form or another. here are some challenges. Number one, can you add some obstacles and or power-ups? So in Mario's Mushroom Chase, you added Bowser as an obstacle. You can have your obstacle move around. It can just be in one place, but obviously when you collide with it, it should lose points or time and reset like position, that type of thing. You can also add some power-ups, so give yourself some more lives, give yourself more time, or the user more time, or you could add like a warp, like sort of like the way that's set up in Super Mario Brothers. So if you touch the warp thing, it should take you to the other part of your maze. That could happen. Get creative. And so again, the second challenge is so it's built in that you should add level 2, and so challenge you is to add level 3. And the way you add level 3 is go back through all this process. It shouldn't be too crazy. You'll go back here. You've already have your components renamed. So when you add level 3, which is basically just redoing your or just following the process again from here, click on the new screen. You'll have to once again delete some new components, and you'll have to engage all the new or rather all the sprites on the property side of the screen, and you'll have to switch up some coding. But instead of level 2 and level 3, or rather level 1, level 2, you have to switch it to 2 and 3. Switch some code over here, and then added this new event for when level 3 opens. So all stuff that's right here, you just sort of have to go back through and get the process. Alrighty, your final app should have an intro screen, 3 levels, with the third level being a challenge. Welcome to put 4 or 5 or however many, and a game over screen. If I figure out the bug for the gyroscope, I will email you guys this week, or just make the change directly in the handout. But we will figure out the bug to get it working on your phone. Your task this week, Gyro Maze Part 2. Just you can submit the same link as Part 1. But just make sure whatever you're submitting has all the pieces to it. Week 9 survey, really just your feedback is so valuable. Thank you. And week 9, giving you extension on the code.org lesson 18, an extra week on that. And if there's past work that you want to talk about and perhaps figure out some extra credit options, that kind of thing, why don't you message or email me. With that, have a great week.